Honorable Buta Jackson, and then we ask the Honorable George. In fact, Honorable George, you should come this side. So you prepare, you warm up, then you take up from there.
What I am presenting, Honorable Moderator, it will be prudent for you to have a copy and hand over to the Right Honorable Speaker, because the voices I'm raising here are collective voices from the traders of Uganda who petitioned EALA through me, because I am a member of trustees of Chamber of Commerce, Uganda National Chamber of Commerce. I'm not only talking as a member of Parliament, but also as Chamber of Commerce. I therefore would like to have this copy handed over to you so that you can give this.
Can I hand it to Commissioner Fatuma, who will then pass it to the Right.
Thank you very much, Honorable Siranda. This is petition to East African Legislative Assembly sitting in Kampala, October-November 2024, from Uganda traders to South Sudan and DRC Congo. We, the citizens of Uganda working and doing business within the EAC, do hereby petition the East African Legislative Assembly sitting in Uganda on these issues below. I will put them in a summary way. 1, the road network of neighboring countries like DRC and South Sudan from Uganda, especially Arua to Aba, Arua to Dungu, Arua Isiro, Arua Bonia and Kisangani in DR Congo, and Oraba Yei and Oraba Yambio in South Sudan to Western Equatorial State, where routine maintenance is completely not there. This should be a serious concern by our governments, because if we have poor state of roads, trade becomes a big problem. Number 2, local relations around the cross-border town is not good. Soldiers are harsh, especially the South Sudanese and Congolese, with roadblocks everywhere and extortion of money from business people in the names of taxes, which are not clear, no clear tax policy. The officers behave as if they are not on salary. In other words, they seem not to be on any payroll and survive on extortion. It's a very serious concern. Traders are paying monies from one roadblock to another. They end up losing a lot of money. Number 3, lawlessness on the side of DRC and the South Sudan, where mistreatment of business people at immigration points and revenue checkpoints of those countries. The staff there are too harsh, hostile, and too rude, most of the times putting people at gunpoint. They have threatened the people, put people on gunpoint, and even shot some people. And in the process, businesses end up getting collapsed. Number 4, security collaboration amongst member states agencies. At times, many things are stolen from Uganda, and their recovery becomes a very big problem. A case in point, Arua Regional Referral Hospital lost a brand new ambulance, and it was taken to DRC. And the authorities in DRC knew where this ambulance was. When Ugandan security tried to follow this ambulance, they could not be supported by the authorities. How do we call ourselves EAC, yet we cannot support each other?
We as members of EALA are very appreciative to PEACA and all of you captains of industry who have put this together. Let me start by saying that the conversation here just confirms the passion that we have for EAC. They say you feel the pain when you love something, because when you lose it, you feel the pain. If we didn't love EAC, we would not be feeling the pain, especially in the areas that are not working well. But you know, I refuse the notion that there are people who have been posting on social media. Our frustrations can sometimes drive us to say things that are not very well considered. There are those who say we are better off without EAC, and I tell them you are living in the past. I was told to talk about the politics, but I don't want to go into that because we are now in the last segment of our very fruitful afternoon. We will spare that for another day. All I can tell you is that our union may be imperfect, we may be having challenges, we may be having differences, but I can tell you that the wheels of integration are unstoppable. That to some of us and many of you who experience regional integration, you know for sure that the wheels of integration are unstoppable in spite of the challenges that we face. And the framers of the treaty, and indeed those who lead EAC, knew that it was not going to be easy. Is it JF Kennedy who said that we go to the moon not because it's easy, but because we understand that when we get to the moon, we advance our science, we advance our knowledge, we deepen our understanding of the world. So it wasn't easy, even for those who are framing this treaty and for our forefathers, but they understood that this hard work pays. So to understand EAC is to understand that it's a give and take concept. Win some, lose some. But in the end, the big picture prevails. And that's why we are in this integration together. So I want to thank the private sector players, because indeed private sector is the key driver of our integration. When we met the president of Uganda, President Museveni, he told us that if we can spend more time to speak to private sector players, to go to the borders, to initiate and legislate, to facilitate trade, the rest will fall in place. Because good business is good politics. When you have a good business environment, you are going to create jobs. You're going to create income. And you can only do that when you deepen our markets and widen our markets.
People don't know the importance for the East African cooperation. People don't know the protocols. People don't know the trade regimes. Our local people who are in millions, we request that next time when the East African Parliament comes, allow to visit one border in Uganda. It will help our people at least to recognize that the East African cooperation is very, very important. Thirdly, I request the partner states respect the trade agreements. Uganda have suffered a lot with Kenya and Southern Sudan. Even with Rwanda, as I talk now, Uganda and the border Rwanda is closed, but we have not had any voice from the members of parliament from East African Cooperation. Sure, it is not in the boardroom, but we who are on the ground, we know. As I talk now, we have 300 trucks of flour packed on the border of Southern Sudan. Beginning with last week, they refused our flour to go to Southern Sudan, which we believe is a trade war. I know some people will say no, but this morning I had a meeting with the members of Ruahi, which is a validation factory in Busia, exporting flour to Southern Sudan. So with such issues, we need harmonization of trade and trade agreements to be respected. We have had so many times whereby Kenya have said, you know, Ugandan milk to go in Kenya. Uganda also says the same. It comes with fuel to an extent that another East African government goes to court to allow the fuel to move. But why is all this coming? Is it because we have refused to listen and respect the trade agreements among ourselves? Lastly, ladies and gentlemen, I want to agree with Nikasita that the worker permits are a very big problem in our region. We still have challenges with our brothers in Kenya and the TZ, the people we call the Abakombozi. Abakombozi are still refusing our people to get worker permits freely. I know they might be controlling their jobs, but why have we opened Uganda to everybody in East Africa? We therefore request them to follow suit so that we can work freely in our region. I know most of the words I talk, intellectuals will not want to hear them because they are in boardrooms, they don't visit borders. But these are the challenges we are getting. I really want to thank the whole of members who are here from all the partner states for coming. But my prayer is one time when you come or when you go to any East African country, visit one border, and find the challenges affecting our people. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
So, but we want to thank you, and indeed, we are going to create these platforms so that we begin to hear from you and see how we can translate these voices into action. The trouble in the EAC is translating these very good voices into action. So we have waxed lyrical about how integration is the, is the new silver bullet. But we are talking about it conceptually. We have got to make it work for ordinary citizens so that we can change the fortunes of our region. We can make our community much more deeply integrated. I thank you so much. Let me take this singular honor to invite the chairperson of the Parliamentary Forum on EAC Affairs, PEACA, to come and address us. And as she comes, I really want to thank you and your team of PEACA for putting this together. And I hope that you can replicate this in all the other parliaments in the region so that we can have a critical mass of policy makers. You know, we need to build that critical mass of political goodwill in the region. The bulk of the non-tariff barriers that we are seeing here is driven by political interests. We politicians here are non-tariff barriers. We are, because we haven't yet transitioned from our constituencies to national and from national to regional. So when I'm elected as a member of parliament for Busia municipality, I speak for Busia municipality. I have forgotten that I am part of the wider, of Uganda and East Africa and Africa. The day we begin to speak to the real issues affecting East Africans, we are going to deliver this integration. And the politicians, you are the spokespersons of this integration. Do not abdicate that responsibility. It's not anybody's responsibility. It is our responsibility to speak out and inspire our ordinary citizens to embrace East African community. So with this, I invite the Honorable Chairperson of PEACA to come and address us. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone. The Honorable Minister of State for Industry, who is representing the Right Honorable Speaker in our meeting today, MPs from East African Legislative Assembly, the MPs from the Uganda Parliament, the private sector foundation that has helped us to mobilize all the private sector actors who are here today. I welcome you all here today. My role is simple. I'm supposed to welcome our Right Honorable Speaker, who's represented by the Minister today, but I'm just going to say a few words. What you've seen here today, my name is Joan Okia. I'm an MP in the East African community. From Uganda, and I represent a smaller group of people from a district in West Nile called Madi Okolo. Yeah, but we're leaving all those behind and we're going to be known as East Africans. What you're seeing here today is really the dream of PEACA. People have been asking, what is PEACA? Why does PEACA exist? PEACA is parliamentarians from the region of partner states who meet together and organize collaborations and interfaces between the MPs in the EALA, the MPs of the national parliaments, and the private sector. I hope that summarizes what PEACA does. And what we're doing here today is the dream of PEACA, bringing together the different actors so that we can actually solve different issues. We have 3 goals in East Africa, in the East African community, which the president very clearly and simply highlighted. He said 1 is the prosperity of Africa, of East Africa first. And then he said the unity of East Africa and the security of East Africa. I would like to thank in a very special way the private sector who are here today. You know, they say time is money. And for the private sector to actually spend this amount of time discussing, you've really put your money on us. And so we thank you. There used to be something called the Nanyuki series, which would bring together members of parliament from EALA, together with the members of parliament from national state, partner states, and the private sector to discuss issues. Now, this was funded by foreign actors. And we all know, as we heard earlier, that this may not be a very favorable position for us to unite and be as one. And so they stopped funding it. And PEACA has come in to fill that gap, to bring people, to bring all the MPs together with the private sector and the member states together. For the first time, we held one gathering in 2022, and we were able to do that. Since then, we've opened chapters in 5 different member states, and we're hoping that 3 of the member states that are still left hanging will join us. We're hoping, the hopes we have for next year in bringing people together, we're going to have an East African, the first ever East African community marathon. And we're praying and we're asking the chief runner to be the father of the region, His Excellency, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. And we hope that every year we will rotate this in each of the member states. And in that, we'll bring more awareness and unity. As I said, my job here is to invite the Speaker of the Parliament, so I'm not going to go very far, but I would like to invite the private sector to join us in some of these activities. We're going to have another gathering which will have all the members of Parliament from EALA and from the partner states, and we invite the private sector to join us in this. In December, we are going to Mombasa, Kenya, where we'll have engagements at the sidelines of the EALA Games. We invite you still, private sector members, to join us, support us, and be with us in this.
We have been conducting them in Mombasa Port, Dar es Salaam Port. We have been doing oversight in borders, Namanga, Busia, I don't know. But what we are hearing here is that we still have a long way to go after 25 years. It is as if you have a secretariat, the EAC secretariat, EALA, it is as if we had done not nothing, but we still have a long way to go. After 25 years, our people are still spending 3 days, 2 days or more, spending nights in their trucks without any sanitation. This is very sad. For me, as a speaker of EALA and through my members, it is as if you had told us, please, save us before we die. And we will do it. We will be proud of our EALA when we'll have a meeting with the stakeholders, and when they will tell us, you EALA, thank you. We had been spending 2 or 3 days at the border, now it's 1 day. we will be proud of ourselves when East Africans will tell us we have been paying our ticket from Bujumbura to Arusha $2,000. Now we are paying a cheaper ticket, and ticket to Dar es Salaam are cheap, to Nairobi are cheap, to everywhere cheap, because you would have harmonized taxes and tariffs. Uganda Airlines, you could be congratulated. In this region, you are the cheapest in the region. I don't know how you handle it, but when we compare Uganda Airlines tickets and the Rwanda Airlines and Kenya Airways and Air Tanzania, we found that Uganda is a little bit cheaper than others. So please, how come our East African body, which is in charge of harmonizing tariffs, how can he be there and enjoy salaries when the traders themselves are crying and requesting to harmonize? I cannot speak more and more and more. I will have to sit with my members. I know how they are committed to deliver. I know them. We'll sit together and we'll adapt our activities, our calendars, our strategies. I'm sure that we will do something that will make us proud of our EALA 5.
On behalf of the Speaker of Parliament of Uganda, I want to bring the apologies that she could not be with you this evening, but she's with you in spirit. And the members of the private sector, no matter when the Speaker is speaking, she's heard in silence, and I'm happy that there is silence in the room. First, if there are any members from the East African Legislative Assembly here who are doubting the seriousness of this meeting, I think the honorable member from the border, Honorable Atima, has reminded you how serious we take this meeting. I also come from the border of Gatuna, and one of the points that he raised, he petitioned. I don't know whether that's the right procedure to petition, but for him, he wrote his petition and said, I'm bringing it here. So, so now, one of the challenges we are having, which he raised, was the issue of telecom. So in one of my sub-counties, Butanda and part of Katuna Town Council, when I'm calling, I have to change to call a Rwandan code to be able to reach Ugandan resident in Uganda. So I join you in your petition to the East African Legislative Assembly. I hope that you can have some space for us on Monday. When you are seated, we bring a formal petition. Yeah. And I think Odong or somebody else can help us to present our petition, if that can help. But the Speaker of the Parliament has given me 4 points to make to you. First, to thank you, Joan, and your team for the wonderful job you are doing as PEACA. She truly appreciates it. Second, to remind you of some of the points that have been raised, that we are here in the East African community for strategic security, for prosperity, for markets, and for political federation. So as leaders in the East African community, we have a responsibility to build on what the people who formed this community to be able to realize it in our lifetime. It is serious business, it's a big responsibility, and efforts like PEACA actually try to bridge the gap between the people and the leaders and it's the only way that we can achieve political federation. The only way we can achieve political federation. We, second, as Parliament and also working together with the executive, we are committed to ensure that we have policies to remove the non-tariff barriers that hinder our community. It is not, I tried, this is not her point, but I tried recently in the footsteps, to walk in the footsteps of Professor Mazurui. Professor Mazurui, I think he was coming from TZ or from, from Kenya. You remember Professor Mazurui? He was from Mombasa. So he went to Nairobi International, Jomo Kenyatta International Airport without a passport. And he said, I'm going to Ghana. He said, I'm going to Ghana. He said, where is your passport? Where's your ID? He said, no, don't you know me? I'm Professor Mazurui. I'm an African. I'm going to an African country. So they reminded him, Professor Mazurui, that that's academic. But when you are crossing, you have to have a passport. So I also tried recently, 4 months ago. I went to the airport. I didn't have an ID. I didn't have a passport. I wanted to go to Kenya. I said, don't you know me? I'm a Minister of State for Industry. I'm crossing to Kenya. They said, no, Minister, that doesn't work that way. So they stopped me. Is it possible that in our lifetime you can just go to the airport and cross to another country without being, and with new technology, I think it is possible. With new technology, it is possible to just go with your fingerprint, press it on a computer, and just cross. Just cross. So we have serious issues to address. So we are confirming that we are committed to resolving all non-tariff barriers that hinder our community. We have identified some. I think the private sector raised a number of issues. Now we agreed as a community to have a uniform standard so that when you satisfy in Uganda your goods, then they are accepted in Kenya. But I keep at the heads of state level, everybody is committed. But when it comes to the operational level, we have issues. We have some products which are very popular. When I was meeting the Committee of Foreign Affairs yesterday, but one, they were raising the issues of MOU that we signed with Rwanda, we signed with Burundi, and one of the things that people from my neighbors from Rwanda have been liking from our country, I'm afraid to say it because I don't believe in it, though I get tax from it. The Uganda Waraji. Uganda Waraji people like it in Rwanda. But now they are sabotaging it from entering. From entering. So we have been asking, what is the problem? So I want to challenge you members of the East African Legislative Assembly. And the one from Rwanda has told me that they are doing it. How many times are you meeting us as ministers to remind us that there is a challenge here we are hearing? Can you resolve it as a chapter? I think it's important that you interact with the Minister of Trade, with the Minister of Finance, with the Minister of Work, so that we can resolve some of these issues. Because you are monitoring these things at an operational level on a daily basis, so it will be important that as a chapter, you can actually deliberately and intentionally interact with government to resolve these issues. But on behalf of government, we are committed to resolving all non-tariff barriers so that we can have a community that will realize the prosperity of the people.